Hello, grade 6. This is Ma'am Abigail, and today we'll be learning Unit 8 Hidden Treasures. In this unit, you will read about some famous adventure journeys so that you can compare them and practice writing this kind of story. You will look at the difference between active and passive verbs and learn more about commas, relative clauses, and the apostrophe of possession. Quests, which are the basis for many games and much children's literature, are a popular form of fantasy which involves a journey towards a goal. These goals can vary from objects to ideas. Quest stories usually have a central hero and the hero faces obstacles to overcome along the way, learning and changing as they go. How to write a quest story. Everyone loves quest stories. The idea of a quest involves setting a character or group of characters, a task that must be completed to retrieve, find something or someone. It usually involves a journey which is often parallel with the internal journey. It's a great sort of tale to write and can be the basis for not just one story but several, depending on how keen you are to writing it. The key features of an adventure story are it describes the adventure and what type of adventure it is, who is the main character, that includes the hero and anybody else in the story, when did it take place or which period. Kindly refer to the key point in page 95 and 96 about the adventure quest characters. Talking animals are a common theme in fantasy and quest stories because the usage of talking animals enable storytellers to combine the basic characteristics of the animal with human behavior to apply metaphor and to entertain the audience or the reader. The synopsis in text 8a and 8b conveys a narrative arc, an explanation of the problem or plot, the characters, and how the story ends. It ensures character actions and motivations, their feelings and emotions, which makes it realistic and makes sense. It summarizes what happens and who changes from the beginning to the end of the story. What is a play script? A play script is a piece of writing written in the form of drama to be performed on stage. Play scripts are formatted differently from other forms of writing, such as novels and short stories, as it contains stage directions, a list of characters, and dialogues. It is also divided into acts that are then divided into scenes. Each scene will have a description of the setting at the start and then the character's dialogue. Here are some of the features of writing a play script. A title. Every play needs a title that tells the reader what the play is about, just like a book needs a title. Characters' names are written on the left of the page and have a colon after them, that is before the dialogue. No speech mark for dialogue. Stage directions are written in present tense. The actor needs to be told clearly what they need to be doing, how to speak or move. Stage directions are written in the bracket. Use capitals, bold, or italics to emphasize words. use emotive and dramatic language in dialogue to convey the thoughts and feelings of the characters. In order to continue a story, bear in mind the following points. The character needs to speak and behave in the way which have already been established. The plot and setting which have been provided need to be continued for an extended period or without interruption. Focus on the style. If it's old-fashioned, it needs to be similar enough to sound like a continuation by the same writer. Text 8c is written in an old-fashioned style, choosing archaic vocabulary. Archaic vocabulary are words that we no longer use in everyday use. Example, thou, you, thy, your, thine, yours, etc. This is the language of fairy tales and legends, which are usually set in medieval times and which use the same kind of elements used in the story The Knight's Riddle in text 8c. What is a synonym? A synonym is a word that has a similar meaning to another. Example, good, fine, okay. Similar means almost the same, but with a small difference. How can we use synonyms? Synonyms can be used instead of common words. Common words lack power in our writing, which can make it boring. By choosing more unusual words, a text can become interesting. Here are some examples. Good, fine, infant, baby, select, choose, accurate, correct, always, forever, etc. We use adjectives to say more about a noun or a pronoun. They go before a noun or a pronoun. Adjectives have no plural forms. Some ly adjectives have no adverbs. And the spelling changes as well. On the other hand, adverbs are used to say more about a verb. It tells us how, when, where, or how much something happens. They usually go at the end of a sentence, never between the verbs and its object. Most adverbs are formed by adding ly to the adjective. However, some adverbs are irregular. Some adjectives end in l. All we have to do is double the letter and give the words ending in double ly. For example, faithful, faithfully. Affixes are group of letters attached before and after the root word. A group of letters placed before the root word are called prefixes, and a group of letters placed after the root word are called suffixes. A negative prefix is a prefix which carries a negative meaning, not or the opposite of, making the original word an antonym. As you know, a relative clause is a part of a sentence beginning with a relative pronoun. The relative pronoun you use depend on the things you are talking about. Generally speaking, the most basic ones are who, which, whom, whose, where, why, and when. Whom is used instead of who in formal speech. It is hardly ever used in spoken English and not often in written English. It is used when it is the object of the relative clause or after a preposition. On the other hand, whose shows possession and it replaces a possessive adjective. It can refer to either people or things. The concept of active and passive voice only applies to transitive verbs. Transitive verbs are verbs that requires a direct object. In other words, a verb in the active voice expresses an action done by its subject, whereas a verb in the passive voice expresses an action done to its subject. The grammatical form of a passive voice verb is be plus the past participle. In the passive voice, the performer of the action is often left out of the sentence. When it is in the sentence, it is usually in a prepositional phrase that begins with by. A complex sentence combines an independent clause with one or more dependent clauses. A complex sentence always has a subordinating conjunction, that is, after, although, because, since, when, or a relative pronoun, that, which, who. For example, I did not see Mike today because he was playing football. Whereas a simple sentence is also called an independent clause. It contains a subject and a verb and expresses a complete thought. For example, Mike plays football in the morning. Here are some simple rules to remember while combining into simple sentences from the complex sentence. Firstly, don't repeat the words. Second, change the words if necessary. And lastly, add words to reconnect ideas. Apostrophes for possession shows that something belongs to one or more people. The possessive form of a singular noun is an apostrophe followed by the letter S. Noun plus apostrophe plus S. For example, Lily's cat or Jared's instructor. Secondly, if the noun is made plural by adding S or ES, put an apostrophe after the S. Example, the boys' bikes, the students' books. Thirdly, if the noun has an irregular plural form, add the apostrophe and an S. For example, the children's toys, the women's restroom. And lastly, remember his, hers, its, ours, yours, and theirs do not have an apostrophe. Here are 6 simple rules for using a comma. We use commas to separate items in a list. Example, I like to play tennis, basketball, cricket, and football. We also use comma to separate clauses when they are joined by any of these coordinating conjunction and, but, for, or, nor, so, yet. Example, I went to school this morning, but it was closed. We also use comma to show words and phrases which are grammatically unnecessary and could be removed. Example, the Founders Bridge, which spans the Connecticut River, is falling down. We use comma to set off a tag question from the rest of the sentence. It's true, isn't it? We also use a comma to separate an introductory element from the rest of the sentence. For example, as the day came to an end, the firefighters put out the last spark. And lastly, we use a comma to indicate direct address. Example, it's that you, Carrie. The purpose of writing an instruction is to describe how something is done so that the process can be replicated. Instructional texts include information that is broken up into a logical sequence of steps to enable the reader to interpret and replicate the process described. The structure of an instruction are a general heading or a title. Divide into different sections and heading, list of materials, sequence of actions or steps. Start each sentence on a new line in a chronological order with an imperative verb. That's all I have for you. Till then, stay home, stay safe.